26% on the nation report that the percentage below for 12 gather for the subtraction in maths. In America, we had everything as an exceptional country, but the 26% sound exceptional to you. Raise your hand if you think as the country we need to do way better than that. I am with you. We all need math for while so many can confuse bias. It's because only 26% of people are hardwired from that. Of 70% or not. After working with thousands of kids, I can tell you this is the case at all. Kids don't understand math because we've been teaching it at the humanities subject. But if we make math human again, it will start make sense again. You're probably wondering how is math in very human in the first place. So think about it. Math is a human language just like English, Spanish, and Chinese because it allows people to communicate with each other. Even in ancient times, people need the language of math to conduct trade, to build a monument, and to measure the land for farming. This idea of maths, the language, isn't exactly new. A great philosopher once said, the law of the nature are written in the language of mathematics. So you see, even Galileo agreed, isn't it? But somewhere along the line, we're taking the language of math with about the real world around use, and we abstract that beyond this recognition, and that they get confused. Let me show you what is mean. Well, see this third grader Californian math standard, and people make sense when 8 year olds understand the fraction 1 over b as the quantity formed by one part when a word is partitioned into b equal parts. Understand a fraction a over b as the quantity formed by a part of size 1 over b. And if you give this description to an 8 year, you'll probably get reaction like this. To a math expert, this standard makes sense, but to kids, isn't an absolute truth. I tell this example specific because the fractions are the foundation to algebra, trigonometry, and even calculus. So kids don't understand fraction in the elementary middle school because it had hell of roadway to ahead them in the high school, but there a way to make subtraction simple and easy for kids to understand. Yes, just remember that math is the language and use that the field makes. For example, when I teach first grader how to add the subtraction, I start with the apple plus listen. For science, one apple plus one apple, and people often say two with the vertical.
Have them include the words as well, since math is a language. So it's not just two, it's two apples. Next is 3 pencils plus 2 pencils. You all know that pencils plus pencils give you pencils. So everyone, how many pencils? 5 pencils. 5 pencils is right. And the key is you included the words. I tried this lesson with my 5-year-old niece once. After she added pencils and pencils, I asked her, what's 4 billion plus 1 billion? And my aunt overheard this and she scolded me and said, are you crazy? She's in kindergarten. How's she supposed to know 4 billion plus 1 billion? Undaunted, my niece finishes counting, looks up and says, 5 billion? And I said, that's right, it is 5 billion. My aunt just shook her head and laughed because she did not expect that from a 5-year-old. But all you have to do is take a language approach and math becomes intuitive and easy to understand. Then I asked her a question that kindergarteners are definitely not supposed to know. What's 1/3 plus 1/3? And immediately she answered 2/3. So if you're wondering, how could she possibly know that when she doesn't know about numerators and denominators yet? You see, she wasn't thinking about numerators and denominators. She thought of the problem this way. And she used 1 apple plus 1 apple as her analogy to understand 1/3 plus 1/3. So if even a kindergartner can add fractions, you better believe that every 5th grader can do it as well. Just for fun, I asked her a high school algebra question. What's 7x squared plus 2x squared? And this little 5-year-old girl correctly answered 9x squared. And she didn't need any exponent rules to figure that out. So when people say that we are either hardwired for math or not, it's not true. Math is a human language, so we all have the ability to understand it. We need to take a language approach to math urgently because too many kids are lost and they're anxious about math, and it doesn't have to be that way. I worked with an angry, frustrated high school student once who couldn't pass algebra because she only knew 44% of her multiplication facts. I told her, that's like trying to read and only knowing 44% of the alphabet. It's holding you back. She couldn't factor or solve equations, and she had no confidence in math. As a result, this teenager had no confidence in herself. I told her, we have to start with multiplication, because once you know all your facts by heart, everything gets easier, and it'll be like having a fast pass to every ride at Disneyland. What do you think? And she said, okay. So she systematically learned her times tables in 4 weeks, and yes, even multiplication has language embedded in it. You'd be surprised how many kids don't realize 7 times 3 can be spelled out as 7 times 3, which just means 3 7 times, just like this. So when kids see it this way, they quickly realize that repeated addition is slow and inconvenient. So they gladly memorize that 3 7 times always gives you 21. So for this teenager who was at risk of dropping out, becoming fluent and confident in multiplication was a game changer, because for the first time, she could focus on problem solving instead of counting on her fingers. I knew she had turned the corner when she figured out that a 2-year car lease at $445 a month would cost you $10,680. And she looked at me disapprovingly and said, Mr. Polysock, that's expensive. At that moment, math was no longer causing problems for her, but she was using math to solve problems as a responsible adult would. As an educator, it's my duty to challenge kids to reach higher. So I leave you with this challenge. Our country is stuck at 26% proficient, and I challenge you to push that number higher. This is important because mathematical thinking not only builds young minds, but our kids need it to imagine and build a future that doesn't yet exist. Meeting this challenge can be as simple as apples plus apples. Insist that we teach math as a human language, and we will get there sooner rather than later. Thank you.